Hello and welcome to episode 1367 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Monday, January 20th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this afternoon by Justin Mason and Jason Collette. Gentlemen, how's it going?
It's going. It's great.
I think we're both still in shock over what happened over the weekend.
You're in shock.
This is true. But hey, look at my big hand. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are number one.
I know Paul
for
wishes
now.
another finger were up, but so this thing's got some story. You guys on audio aren't gonna. So let's see. Is it down here? One of these here. Yeah. You see that burn mark?
I do.
For those of you guys watching the video, that's from a Tampa Bay fan trying to set that on fire while my hand was still in it in 1994 when Heath Schuler was quarterbacking this team.
What
Shocker, Washington lost that game because Heath Schuler sucks ass.
True.
Yeah.
But somebody
But
tried
who
to
did
set my
Tampa
hand
Bay
on fire.
have, though? They're terrible, too.
Dilfer? I don't recall.
I just can't believe that Tampa Bay fans thought they had the upper, the high ground enough to be burning you.
Right. Yeah. So
Good
they
Lord.
tried to light my that. So the beating Tampa Bay 2 weeks ago, that was for them. I don't have any ill will to you. I'm just stunned we won.
So am I. It's
Stunned.
absolute nightmare. I mean, the defense was just cooked.
Well, to be fair, your
Lost
defense
a
has
Meek
been
right
broken.
away. The whole
Your defense
season
has been broken for all season. And
Right,
then,
and-
the first play of the game, the other guy gets knocked out.
Right, Amik Robertson, and already so short, and that's a huge reason why. And then the turnovers, right? You can't have 5 turnovers. Call it 4. I'm with Dan Campbell on that. Call it 4 because the last one, who really cares? But 4 turnovers, You're just not going to overcome that. They did overcome the 5 picks in Houston. I was actually at that game. That's a miracle, though. You're not going to be able to overcome turnovers like that consistently. And I mean, there you go. It's just a nightmare, and people using it as a way to be like, see, I told you Goff wasn't good. Fucking morons. I mean, it's the stupidest thing ever.
He was throwing from his back foot the entire game, but it was
and just ignore the fact that he had a head injury too. Like, give me a break. And the people that want to blame the coordinators for interviewing, again, you show how little you understand about sports when you say shit like that. What about that game was a scheming issue?
Yeah.
What about that wasn't turnovers that were caused by Washington playing great and a decimated defense? What other factors are? And again,
plays,
take nothing
you guys
from
had
Washington.
500 something yards.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like, give me a break. The picks are the difference. And Goff can eat those. And he, like a true leader, fell on his sword and said, yeah, I got to be better, all that. Great. But the people that want to use that, it's like the thing that Justin and I make fun of all the time. When you want to say Chris Sale's an injury risk for 10 years, and then when he gets hurt in the 11th year, say, yeah, I got it. You're a dumb piece of shit. That's what people are doing with Goff right now. You desperately wanted to say how bad he was for 17 games, but he went 15-2, so you really couldn't say that. He has his worst game at the worst moment. Now you're like, yeah, I was right the whole time. No, you're not. You're dumb. And I don't think there's anything against Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn. I don't expect them to not interview. What we expect the coordinators on good teams to miss out on all the jobs because they're in the playoffs. That's an NFL thing. I think it is kind of weird that coordinators on the good teams have to kind of balance those two things. But what about that game was a scheming issue? That 5 extra hours in the study lounge would have helped.
Yeah, I mean,
what fucking game were they watching when they say that shit? I don't get it.
This was the story in all of them, though. I mean, all 4 games this weekend, the losing team outgained the winning team.
Yeah.
The difference, 0 turnovers.
Bingo.
There were no turnovers for the teams that won. And that was, and I don't know if you guys saw the story. I would love to see the baseball version of this, but I don't know if you guys saw the story about Jaden Daniels and training with VR goggles. And it started back at LSU, and he was insistent upon an NFL team allowing him to do his training with VR goggles. And he watches these things at 1.75 speed. And so it's like, even they talked about, but he did this back when he was at LSU, and he missed a whole week's of practice in concussion protocol, got cleared for the game, and then went out and dropped like 550 on Tennessee, I think it was. It's because he sees all this, and to your point about scheming. Aaron Glenn, the one thing they kept talking about in the broadcast about, is he going to dial up the blitz? every time he did, Daniels was just
Burnt.
like sitting back there dropping
Yep.
dimes.
Burnt
Just
on
dropping
all the
dimes.
blitzes.
And then when they didn't blitz is when they were like, okay, kind of forcing a run. But and then when I read that VR story, because my son sent it to me yesterday, I was like, this makes, they keep saying, well, the game looks so slow to him and how he, he doesn't have that. If I'm used to watching, kind of like you guys, I listen to you guys at 1.75 to 2 speed all the time. And it's like, now we're talking. I'm like, God, why are you guys so slow?
Speed it up, losers. Are they slurring? What's wrong with these guys? But yeah, I mean, just an amazing game. I imagine you guys are on cloud 9 the way I was. I've been telling Justin, like, you guys are just a year behind us Lions fans in terms of these great feelings. And, this huge playoff win here has to feel like that. You got to be, you're live dogs against a division opponent. I don't care how good Philly is. I respect them. And if I were to like anoint a second favorite team, it's always been Philly, dating back to the Randall Cunningham days. So even though I did tell you, Justin, that I was going to cheer for you guys if you beat us, I don't know if I actually am.
How dare you?
I know. Like, I kind of like if we lose
right,
and we lose to the,
let's go.
if we lose to the Super Bowl representative, I'll be like, okay, they were the team of destiny. But I do have a little bit of allegiance to the Eagles. It's going to be a hell of a game. Where are you guys at, though? You guys feel riding high, confident, house money type of vibe where you're just like, it doesn't really matter what happens?
For sure, it's house money, right? Like, we were a team that won 4 games last year.
Right.
And it's insane. And I think I tweeted it out and threw it on Blue Sky, like, right after the game ended. Like, I don't know how to handle this kind of success. Like,
nope.
For me, I'm a little bit younger than you guys. So, like, the last time the Washington football team made it this far was in 1991. I don't remember that. Like, I was
freshman year of college.
Yeah.
And who they beat?
They beat the Bills.
Who they beat before that?
Who do they always beat before that? The Lions.
Yeah, the Lions. 41 to 10.
Yeah.
Like,
4 in a row.
It's like a franchise situation. And like, I understand why that stuff gets brought up, but obviously it had no bearing on Saturday. But yeah, like the Lions have a roadblock against Washington in the playoffs right now.
Yeah. So for me, like, I know it's like, it's such an awkward, it's an awkward feeling to like be good. And I've said it for a lot of years. If Washington makes the Super Bowl, I will be watching that Super Bowl in a hotel room by myself with my phone turned off, because like I'm one of the few Washington fans that all my friends know. And I don't know if I'd be able to handle losing a Super Bowl. So.
I said the same thing though. Like if the Lions had made it last year, or if they had made a run this year, I was like, I don't want to watch the game at a party. I don't want to go to a sport.
No,
I kind of want to watch it by myself.
Yeah, I did.
Maybe with Jen, but other than that, I don't like
I
our
would be allowed to watch it by
people.
myself. Yeah, my wife will want to watch it with me, and I'm sure my family will want to watch it with me, but I will be too. Like we were up with like 14 points with like 2 minutes to go or something like that. And my brother-in-law was
good, right?
Yeah, my brother-in-law was trying to talk to me and like, I was like, dude, talk to me.
It's not over.
Like,
Shut up.
I'm literally knocking on wood. I'm like, I was so nervous. I think, even if you don't root for us, Paul, next week, I'm sure we can all root for one thing, which is we don't want to see Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl again.
Right. Especially this year too, because like they were, horseshoes up their butt. And I'm never one to like, I'm not trying to take anything from them. They are a dynasty. And when you are that good, even when you're not at your best, you can squeeze a 15-2 record out because every break goes your way. And part of that is Mahomes just being Mahomes. But yeah, it's time to dethrone them. So I will say this, if you guys do beat the Eagles, then I'm all the way, regardless of whether it's the Bills or the Chiefs there with Jaden and company, because unbelievable. I also do have some affinity for Scary Terry despite having gone to OSU. Obviously I hate Ohio State, growing up a Michigan fan, but I've loved Scary Terry since he was in the league, so it's nice to see him get some love. It's a really compelling team. I got to ask you guys though, how you feeling about Cosme being out? Because those line moves,
sucks.
not everyone knows linemen. He's a big deal. And as a team decimated by injuries, I can understand how scary that is. Are you nervous about Cosme being out?
Extremely, because if you remember the first matchup against the Eagles, Jalen Rager, just absolutely manhandled the interior line. Absolutely manhandled them. And losing Cosme, doesn't help. I don't know
No.
what you do. And it had to be. I was hoping the Rams could pull out that matchup, but stupid football allows postseason games to be played in crappy weather. I mean, what other sport does this? Baseball covers it, rains out. Hockey doesn't do. It's just like, no, we're gonna play football in like this terrible weather.
And it was a big
call
deal
that
in
an
both
advantage.
games. I mean,
Oh yeah,
Mark Andrews, feel bad for him today. Stafford clearly, I don't know if you, I don't know. I wasn't listening to that game. I didn't have that game with the sound on, the Rams Eagles games, but did they mention that when he played the Eagles in a big snow game with the Lions, he fumbled like 3 or 4 times? This was a regular season game back in the day. So it's like, he clearly doesn't like the cold. And you guys know that I will forgive him for that because I hate the cold. I couldn't imagine trying to play football in that. Existing in weather that bad is difficult. Hucking around a rock, guys, football's even in the best of weather, even in Miami in 100-degree weather, the ball is pretty hard. So you also, then you want to put it into snowy territory. That thing is a boulder that they're throwing around and trying to grip. So I cannot imagine that. And it does create some crazy dynamics to the game, but I'm with you. I think I'd rather it be played straight up where the teams and the talent is deciding it more than the bounces and the goofiness of the awful weather. I am torn though, because the aesthetic of it is beautiful. Watching a snow game on television looks cool, but it does wreak havoc on the players.
It's always fun to play on Madden. It's like, ooh, let me play on snow.
Right.
And so, but I mean, getting back to the Chiefs, because I'll offer you a transition. The Chiefs are fun for football because everybody outside of Kansas City hates them. And we all want to see them lose.
Dynasties are good for sports. There's
and that's
somebody
where
to
we're
chase.
At with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Now.
There's a transition, baby.
There's my transition.
Let's
it's like
get on the segue.
Everybody hates it, and there we go. So it's like the Chiefs and now the Dodgers after this weekend, the Dodgers are now we used to make the joke about the evil empire.
It was the Yankees forever. Yep.
No, now we're on Death Star 2.0. And
yes,
that's
we
the
are.
Dodgers.
Let's talk about them because they made 2 more big signings, one substantially bigger than the other. And it felt like a foregone conclusion. I know there were a few other teams in the mix and it could have gone another way, but most people were of the mind that Roki Sasaki was going to become a Dodger, and that's exactly what happened over the weekend. I think it was the Padres, and who was the other team? There were 3 teams.
Toronto,
of course. It had to be Toronto. They did win a player, though. We'll talk about that in a moment. But Roki Sasaki goes to the Dodgers. It just makes a ton of sense, and obviously everyone's up in arms about all the deferrals and all that. Look, they're playing within the system. If the system changes, sure. It doesn't bother me that much because we've still seen them lose in the playoffs. Like we as a baseball culture make the same mistakes every year, though. They have a huge offseason. We anoint them the winner, and then we're surprised when they lose in the playoffs. It's like, when are people going to realize that the playoffs are still a crapshoot, even if you've got the best team? And so, yes, they're going to be the favorites. Yes, they have gobs and gobs and gobs of talent, but nothing's guaranteed in October. So we'll have to see. But I'm very excited for Sasaki. Don't forget, he comes over in the Ohtani style, where he comes over in the international market, meaning he didn't make gobs upon gobs of money yet. Now, he'll get endorsements and everything. He'll be fine. And the $6.5 million signing bonus he got, no one's crying for him. But this is a different situation than guys being posted the way they normally are when they come over in their mid-20s or even early 30s. Sasaki's coming over at 23. He is coming off of his worst season, but I have to put that in the proverbial air quotes because he still put up a 2.35 ERA and a 1.04 WHIP. But that's a far cry from 178.075, which is what he put up in 2023. Justin, let's start with you. Where are you at on Sasaki for his first year in the pros? Are you going to pay the premium for him? Because we know he's going to skyrocket up the draft board.
Yeah, I doubt I'll pay the premium. I just rarely pay the premium on guys coming over for the first time. And that often just means like, hey, I'm not going to get the goodness that comes with him. And I think he is going to be a really good pitcher out the gate. But I just, until you go through everything that goes into being a major league pitcher, I just have a really hard time paying the kind of price that is associated with Roki Sasaki.
And I'll get you that price right now. It's pick 80 just for this month of draft champions. That's only 12 drafts, and it's going up. And I bet it goes as much as in half. I think the ADP could be about pick 40, pick 50. Jason, is this the kind of guy that you would get in on? It's a sight unseen. It's a risky thing. I don't think that's generally your vibe, but is Sasaki somebody that you'd pay the premium on?
Yeah, it's not my vibe, but like you said, seemed like a foregone conclusion that he was going here. Some were even saying it was already done. Handshake.
Right.
If you read some of the story about it, there was a couple of unnamed sources that was like, yeah, this we all knew this is. That's why some teams just sat this one out. But no, I would rather go for the known knowns. I'll go the Donald Rumsfeld role. I'm gonna go with the known knowns instead of the unknown unknowns, unknown knowns. I can't even get the quote right, but you know what I'm getting at.
I do. Yeah, no, I get that too. Like, because it is, you do have to pay the premiums these days on these guys, and this goes for like prospects too, right? He is in essence sort of a prospect. Sasaki is, especially with his age. Yeah. And so paying that kind of pick, top 80 right now, and I believe upwards of top 40, top 50 when the dust settles now that he's officially signed, you're putting him around Dylan Cease, Cole Reagans, Yamamoto, who's at least in his second year, Michael King, who obviously broke out last year but has several years in the majors, Blake Snell, his new teammate. So there's risk in that group too. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that there's no risk with any of those guys, but I do think Sasaki's is still heightened because he is such an unknown. Some people like to bet on that unknown, and they'll pay, the moon. But then the second that something goes wrong, those guys fall off a cliff price-wise for other guys, or for some fantasy managers. For me, it's just I'm willing to miss out on Sasaki, and I'll just take other pitchers right now. But he is going to be really, really exciting in LA. And obviously now they're really starting to put something together with their rotation. And they haven't even brought Kershaw back yet, which we know they're going to do for a summer. He'll join them in the summer, I imagine. But right now they're looking at Snell, Yamamoto, Glasnow, Sasaki, Gonsolin, Dustin May coming back. So they've already got 6 ready to go, and they'll go through them all. But how do you feel about this Dodgers rotation as a whole, Justin? Is it the cream of the crop in the league?
I mean, I think it is, but at the same time, it is not the most stable rotation in terms of health history, right? Like you're talking about a rotation that includes Blake Snell, who has struggled with injuries throughout his career. You've got Yamamoto, who struggled with injuries last year. Tyler Glasnow, I'm extremely worried about his elbow and whether or not he's going to make it through a full season. And then guys like Tony Gonsolin coming off of injury, Dustin May coming off of injury. Like, if they bring Kershaw back, like Kershaw dealt with injuries over the course of the last few years that were devastating. So, like, I think they need all this depth. Everybody's like, well, they're so loaded. What are they going to do? Like, what are they going to do? 3 of these guys could be on the IL come the end of April. You just don't know. I'm really, really worried about a guy like Glasnow who, I think his elbow's going to explode as soon as he gets on the mound. So, I'm not touching him. So, I'm probably just not drafting any of these pitchers. Like, I'm going to draft a lot of Dodgers hitters, but I just can't imagine I'm going to draft very many pitchers this year from the Dodgers because their prices are just too outrageous.
I was about to say they're not cheap. You got Snell around pick 44, Yamamoto pick 57, Glasnow 109. And then I mentioned Sasaki at 80. And again, that's going to go up for sure. May and Gonsolin are cheap if you want some cheap flyers just to get into their rotation. They're actually
don't know what their innings are going to look like.
They're complete wild cards at this point, though, too. So how much confidence can you have? But it is past pick 400, 410 and 420 respectively for May and Gonsolin. So at least you can get some cheap flyers into their rotation if you really want. But the other guys are really where the meat of it is with Snell, Yamamoto, Glasnow, and Sasaki. Jason, what about you? Is this a rotation that you're going to invest in, or again, just too much risk across the board, including your old guy in Tampa Bay with Tyler Glasnow?
Yeah, it's a volume game for them. They have so many options, and when you have that many options, they don't have to take chances with some of these things. So yes, we
didn't even mention Miller. Sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, as Brett Hale points out,
yes,
they've got Miller, Sheehan, Grove, Stone chomping at the bit too. But I think it's actually champing at the bit. But Stone and Sheehan are out for the year with injury. But Bobby Miller, I can't quit him yet. But as it stands right now, we've got him starting in the minors.
You got to say Bobby Miller like Eno did at AFL. Bobby Miller.
That's how I treated him last year. I was that excited about it. He's now picked 345. Do you go back to the well with a Bobby Miller, even with without a guaranteed role, Jason?
Yeah, I love those types. I mean, his ADP in January is 326. Yeah. I'll take that late dart chance on Bobby Miller there because of the price. But like I said, this is a volume game. They have so many different options they can throw on this. I made the comment the other day, the strikeout record, the staff record for most strikeouts in a single season is the Houston Astros struck out 1,687 as a collective.
Was that the year that Cole and Verlander K300?
This was like 2018, 2017, somewhere around there.
I think it would be 19 if it's the year I'm thinking of.
Or maybe it is
both 19. Did 300 Ks.
But then but this Dodger staff could challenge 1,700. We've never seen it before. And when you look at what this bullpen has, yikes. I mean, the games are going to get short as it is. But
your segues are on fire. We have to bring up Tanner Scott now. Beautiful transition. They added to it, too. You're not wrong that the bullpen was already pretty compelling. And now they put Tanner Scott on top of it. Is he the closer, Jason? Let's start with you here because I've been drafting Kopech as the guy, but now I am worried. Even though Scott's a lefty and there is a lefty bias, they still have Vesia and Banda who can get the other lefties out earlier in the game. So I think they could go with Scott here. What do you think is the closer? Who do you think is the closer in LA right now?
Yeah, I nobody would say anybody making $18 million a year is going to be the automatic closer, but for the Dodgers, $18 million is like couch change. They've got that laying around. But to your point, they've got Vesia, they've got Banda, and those guys aren't bums. They're good.
No,
they're
both
really
awesome.
good out of the bullpen. What Banda's done with that slider is unbelievable. And then, Kopech looked fantastic over. Trinan's still Trinan. Evan Phillips is still serviceable. Like their B bullpen could be the A bullpen for just about every other team in baseball.
Agreed.
It's
Justin,
just unbelievable what they're going to be able to do here.
Were you on Kopech at all before this? Were you worried that they were going to sign somebody? And do you believe that Scott is going to take that gig now?
Yeah, I wasn't on Kopech, not because I don't love his skills, but because of this kind of issue. I really felt like the Dodgers could add to this bullpen. I didn't think it was going to be Tanner Scott, but Tanner Scott's going to look really, really good in blue and white. And I think he will be at least given the opportunity to be the guy to start the season. The problem with Tanner's... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, let's talk price points then. Yeah. Because Scott, we expect, Justin and I talk about it all the time. After a signing, guys generally go up, especially when they sign to the best team in baseball. So in January, 12 drafts, Tanner Scott going pick 144. I think we slice 50 picks off of that. I think he's going to skyrocket.
Easily, yeah.
Oh, he's already gone as high as 61 since the signing.
There you go. So let's put him in the top 70. Kopech, meanwhile, was picked 200 this month. He's going to go down. Do you guys think he can steal enough saves that in this fractured saves universe, it might still be worth taking the flyer on Kopech? And would you pay the premium for Scott? So double-edged question there, Justin. Would you take Kopech at 200 or lower? And are you going to pay the premium for Scott now that you believe he is the man?
I wouldn't pay the premium for Scott now that he's the man, just because I think the stuff is really, really good. He does struggle with control a lot. And I feel like this bullpen is so stacked that they can just go to anybody else, right? Like they've got all these other guys that they could just go to if Scott does struggle and is better for them in, an 8th or 7th inning role. So yes, I would not be going after Scott at what is going to be an outrageous ADP, but I would go after Kopech because I do think that Kopech would be the next man up. Or if they turn this into a sharing role, like the righty gets maybe get some more opportunities than lefties. So I think Kopech is the guy you want to buy if you're not willing to kind of spend that huge price tag on Tanner Scott.
Same question set to you then, Jason. Pay the premium for Scott and or buy Kopech? And obviously the answer, neither is available too if you want. Where are you at now with this bullpen now that we feel like these roles are relatively set with Scott as the guy and Kopech as the next, as more of the fireman type?
So when you look at this, there's always a case of too many wins. And if this offense is going to be that good, how many saves are there for the Dodgers? Like, let's just say they're this good and they win. Let's say they push and they challenge the 116 win Seattle Mariner team. I don't recall how many saves they got that year from their closer, but there is a too many. Sasaki. There is a too many at some point. And this team, clearly they don't need to go pedal to the metal in the regular season. They just need to win their division. And then they can put it in cruise control. They know that it's the long play. And so they're not going to be out there like it's got to be Scott every time. So I agree. There's some value in taking Kopech, even if he doesn't get, like last year, Blake Trinan, I believe, had 7 wins and had 5 saves, and he had the good ratios. Like there's some value in Kopech, even if he's getting a minority share of the saves, because he's going to have the strikeouts. The ratios are going to be there. He should be able to vulture some wins as well. So kind of look at Jeff Hoffman last year.
Yes, I was going to bring up both those things, the sneaky wins and the Hoffman thing. Now, I was going to bring up the Hoffman thing as a little bit of a cautionary tale, though, because I was hot on Hoffman. He was the guy I staked my claim to in the Phillies bullpen, and he only got 10 saves. He got 3 wins. I would have expected more there. That's just kind of distribution.
And those were front
wins.
loaded, by the way. Those wins were early.
Right. And so I'm like, he's going to get 12 wins and 15 saves. This is going to be great. Now, the ratios were awesome. 217, 097 on the ERA whip with 89 Ks and 66 innings for Hoffman. I would take that sort of thing with 10 saves and 3 wins. I would take that for Kopech. But because they're going to win so much, and I think he is going to be the fireman, I think he could actually get the sneak double-digit wins. Now, you don't project him for that. You plan for like 6 or 7 and your 10 saves, and you go from there. But I really do still like Kopech at pick 200 or later. I think he's going to fall way down because everyone's going to say it's Scott's job, unencumbered, this, that, and the other, which, again, you might not be wrong. But like you said, Jason, they're going to have so many wins that they can spread it out. And they know it's all about October, too, right? They are the Spurs of the Major League Baseball, where it's load management for them. They're not going to be busting their hump for every single win, and Scott has to get every close. No, they have a deep enough team that everyone's going to get a taste. And so I think even Trinan could scoop like 6, 7 saves and have a period where he's useful to somebody who's just looking for like a third closer type in a deeper league. So it'll be a deep bullpen. We'll see how it goes. If they change and say, no, Scott's going to be the 8th inning guy and Kopech's the guy, we'll obviously address that. But for now, it looks like it's going to be Scott that you want to draft as the primary closer, and then probably Kopech as the second in command. Let's go to Canada because they won another guy. Yay, they were in the mix for Sasaki, as they are for literally everybody. And Justin and I had some fun jokes at their expense about how even when they won a guy with Hoffman, they were still third because the other 2 teams declined the medicals. But Santander, at least as far as I know, they won fair and square. So they signed Anthony Santander. They are going to have a little bit of a deferral situation here. So I guess every other, the other teams want to get in on it, obviously. But there's a big slugger staying in division and moving up north to Toronto. Jason, let's start with you on Santander. I know we'll get to you, Justin, because I know this is one of your guys. How does he look in Toronto, Anthony Santander, coming off a 44-homer season?
I mean, I want the sponsorship deal because I looked this up earlier today when I heard the news. In Toronto, apparently they call tater tots Tasty Taters. It's a group by McCain. There's a I
didn't even know that.
There's a corporate group. Let's see. Yeah, McCain Food Limited has this thing called the Tasty with an I, not with a Y, but Tasty Taters. So as Tony Taters is hitting home runs, they should call them Tasty Taters.
Absolutely.
Get the sponsorship deal done. But
doing the marketing now, I love it.
Right. Yeah. If you're looking at what was left, this was the best landing spot. I would be more concerned if Seattle got in on this. Like, oh no, please don't do that.
They're still going to get
a good
beat.
landing spot. Yeah, this is a good landing spot for Santander. I don't expect him to challenge 40 home runs again. He's going to miss the right field in Camden. Rogers Center is not bad, but he's still going to miss that. Rogers Center plays more neutral, looking at the park factors just for, I'm hitting from the left side. With that, I know Santander's a switch hitter, but he did most of his damage from the left side of that. So, and I'm curious with Toronto, this is one of these better things. It was like, okay, they're trying to do something this year. I really didn't understand the signing Jeff Hoffman, but if they do it, now that they've done this, it thickens their lineup. I would still like to see them do something about the top of their lineup. It should not be George Springer. The days of George Springer hitting leadoff should be over. He's
a classic 5 hitter at this point. I really think he should be there. I totally agree with you. I don't think Bo's the answer either, though. They need to get somebody else. And Miles Straw is not the answer.
No.
They were hyping up that move. Spencer Horwitz would have been the answer.
Exactly. Spencer Horwitz.
I agree. I think he should have been. I've sung his praises. We talked about him during the first base preview. Justin, we go to you now. This is your guy, Santander. He's averaged 35 homers the last 3 years, 33, 28, 44 Where does it land in Toronto? Is he still going to be somebody that's on your board too? Because you've been a big fan of his the last several years, benefiting from this career emergence for Anthony Santander. Do you like him in Toronto?
I mean, I love him anywhere. Like, I think Santander has power that plays in any place. So, like, I'm not super worried about moving to a little bit more difficult of a park for him to hit homers in, because I just think he's going to hit homers wherever he goes. I mean, I think this is a bigger move for Toronto in general. I mean, they needed this bat in this lineup.
Right.
And I think we talked about it, maybe it was last episode, like, hey, like, the back half of this lineup looks gross. It still looks gross.
It still does, but at least this is a big, true premium bat added to it.
Yeah. So, as far as whether I'll be willing to take him, I really want to see what happens with his ADP. Like we mentioned already, this episode is usually guys rise when anything happens in the news. And I assume he could, but I could also see him dropping a little bit. I mean, Toronto, it is a worse park for him power-wise. I think people were hoping he'd maybe go to a better park. There's been a lot of talk about how bad Toronto might be this year. So I actually want to see if that ADP starts to drop a little bit. Something I'm going to be tracking with my article that I do here. But I don't have a problem with where he's going personally.
Pick 110 in January so far. Again, 12 draft champions leagues for Anthony Santander. But you click into his profile, you start to see some of these recent drafts, and the bulk of them are within the top 80, including a 55 and a 66 in today's drafts that you can see. Now, there's also a 115 and a 137 from today. So we've seen a scatter here for Santander that has suggested that maybe it won't just be an automatic rise to his ADP, that maybe the naysayers on Toronto will balance out those who are excited that he signed there, and maybe he stays around this 90 to 110 range. Do you like him at that price point, Justin?
I think I'm okay with it. I think it really just depends on your build. You know, do you need the power that he provides at that point? Because while I don't expect him to hit 44 home runs again, you look at like his home runs in Toronto last year, it would have been 39. Like he would have been.
I'd be surprised if he melts, right?
Yeah, I'll probably project him for like 36, 37 home runs just to be a little bit conservative. But like that's a lot of power. And as we know, power is down. It's harder to get the deeper you get in the draft. And so if you're getting to a point, you know, around pick 100 where you don't have enough power already on your roster, like I think Santander is a great guy to go out and get. So yeah, I'd have no problem taking him where he's going to be going.
I think that is a fair price point for Santander, and I'll be eager to see if it moves a lot. And like you said, could the stink of Toronto push it down? Because there are a lot of folks that are negative on him. Will that?
I think there'll be individual drafts. It won't be every draft. I think the ADP will probably stick around where it's at.
So you won't be able to know. You'll just kind of land on it and be like, oh, this is one of the drafts where he's going very low, and I'll take Santander at pick 130 or something like that. Yeah, exactly. I can see that too. So let's go out to New York and talk a couple bits of news there. They're going to re-sign Jesse Winker, or they have, rather. He's been an afterthought in drafts, pick 452. So, you know, definite like late round flyer as a platoon type of guy. I think that's fine. I'm actually more intrigued. We will talk a little Winker, but I'm more intrigued by the fact that the Mets have come out and said they expect Pete Alonso to sign elsewhere. Remember, a lot of the offseason started with, like, they signed Soto, and they're just going to, you know, they brought back Manaea, they're going to bring back Alonso, they're just spend. But it looks like Alonso might not be returning there. And I'm curious how you feel about that, Jason. Like, you mentioned Seattle as a team that's also been looking for big bats. That's where I put him early in the offseason. I don't love it, but I get it if Seattle does it, right? They need some pop. It's not their, I mean, I was going to say it's not their fault the park robs everyone. Technically it is. They are in control of that. They could fix that. But what do you think of Alonso maybe not going back to New York? Does that worry you about his potential future at all, Jason?
But worries me about his potential future. I'm still jokingly make the comment he should just come home to Tampa and just do the Blake Snell type of deal and give 25 year every year opt out. Let him come and slug and try that. But with
especially in the minor league park, right?
Yeah, I mean with Santander, this would have been the other option, but you kind of look at it on paper, you can kind of figure out this is not the direction they wanted to go with this. I mean, I like what the Mets have done here. I don't know if they need Alonso because
I don't think they do.
The OBP is, I mean, you look at this lineup, you could construct this lineup and you, especially against righties with Winker moving up, there's a lot of OBP. There's going to be a lot of traffic on the bases for this. And so I don't know if they need it. I mean, Jose, it's just funny. You could like sort by OBP on this team and you're like, wow. Then you're like scrolling 50 feet of crap. Oh, hey, there's
Siri.
Yeah. But
he has my weight for his OBP.
I just don't think the Mets need Alonso. And so I really like what they've done here. And, so I'm just concerned where Pete ends up at this point. He may have to take one of these incentive-laden multi-opt-out deals and try again next year because, he and his agent kind of misread the market. And we know the risk. I mean, we as fantasy players know the risk of this body type.
And that's the thing. Teams are getting smarter about these 30-something first basemen. And, the Jose Abreu deal by Houston aside there. But, like, teams are getting smarter. And, like, I love Pete. He's an easy guy to root for. He's kind of a fan favorite type. But heart versus brain, my brain says do not sign him to more than the 3-year deal. Yeah. And, don't be smart here. You got to be smart. I do think he's still going to maybe matriculate out to Seattle and probably just be.
He's not going to Seattle.
Get your bag. If he's going to Seattle, go get that bag.
Seattle's not going to spend the money. Like, I mean, as much as I'd love to see him,
they just can't succeed if they don't start bringing in people, though.
Well, and what the history of the Seattle Mariners is they don't succeed. So I think that's
and then when they did spend money on Adrian Beltre, it went nowhere.
Yeah.
Right. But that's because of the park. Again, still because of the park, right? So maybe do something there, and then your own guys can start to hit. But anyway, let's spin back to Winker real quick, Justin.
Because wait, hold on. I want to talk about Alonso real
Go
quick.
ahead.
I have figured out what's going to happen, right?
He's going to go to your Giants?
He's going to go to my Giants, right? Who was the team last year that waited till the end of the offseason to swoop in and sign 2 big-name guys at below market value deals because other teams were too scared to go? And it was the Giants. Like, I think that the Giants are going to bring in Pete Alonso.
I'd much prefer that to Seattle.
I
much prefer. I do not worry as much about right-handers going to San Francisco, especially one with his type of power. But there's something about that batter's eye in Seattle that messes with guys. That's why there's so many more strikeouts. Yes, they have good pitchers, but like that park screws with you. Yeah. And so San Francisco's, it's a difficult park to go yard in, especially if you're a left-hander. But for righties, I think he'd be fine. So I agree. If that's where he goes, I'm with it. I still have Seattle as my pick for Alonso, but I agree that would be the much better move and that you guys are definitely in the mix to do it. I wouldn't even be surprised in the slightest if Alonso goes out to San Fran. Let's talk Winker real quick because I'm worried that a lot of folks could be deceived by his season. Now, the ADP says I shouldn't be worried because it is, into the 400s, so people aren't freaking out. But he went 14-14 last year. Do you guys know how many steals Jesse Winker had coming into last year? Do you guys want to lobby a guess there?
Less than 14.
7.
Yeah. Less than 14 was correct. 7 was nowhere near. He had 3.
How about 3?
Yeah, he had 3.
Look at that.
And so 14 this year, all 14 were with Washington. I'm of the mind that you should ignore those. He had none with New York. I don't think you're going to get more than like a passing 1 or 2. So then you get a platoon bat who can, hit a little bit of power, maybe a little bit of batting average against righties. Is there anything here with Winker then in New York for the full season? And are you worried that people would overrate him a bit because of those steals, or do you think that the ADP at 500 or 400 something is fine and that he's not being overrated, Justin?
Yeah, I don't think the ADP is overrating him at all. I think that ADP is fine. I mean, that's literally like, last few rounds of 15-team mixed league draft, which is where Jesse Winker probably should go.
I agree.
But I also believe that there isn't much here. When he got to New York last year, he hit 243, 318, 365 with 3 home runs in 129 plate appearances. You really can't, even if you triple it, you give him 450-ish plate appearances and go, hey, we're just going to triple that line. That is 9 home runs. Who cares? That's just, at this point in his career, Jesse Winker is a fine, platoon bat that you can use at times. But ultimately, I think from a fantasy angle, he isn't much of anything.
Yeah, I'm not sure there is. And like I said, I do respect that the market isn't overrating the 14 steals, because I do think if anyone believed that the 14-14 was legit, he probably would be about 100 picks higher, if not more. in that sort of mid 300s range, and he's not. So that is good with Winker. I don't think we really need to go any deeper. Did you want to say anything about him, Jason?
The only thing I was trying to look up, I've had some kind of memory of Winker struggling with a bit of an injury later in the season, and
Well,
he did. I mean, he did
too,
have
right?
he did have some back issues, and maybe that was part of the reason why he didn't even attempt a stolen base with the Mets. Yeah, he didn't even attempt one.
But they also
after
don't run.
Yeah, Davey Martinez was aggressive with the Nationals, but for Winker not to even attempt one,
it was surprising.
To be like an order.
But it really shows you how much the team drives steals, right? We know player decision and team decision, and you don't really know unless we get some news about it, right? Because one of the classic cases that we talked about for years, people at least don't project him for it anymore, but for years everyone was waiting for Ketel Marte to steal because he's a fast guy, and he never did because he didn't want to, because he thought that the heightened risk from injury just wasn't worth the payoff. And we've seen that he's been like a 6 to 7 guy for most of his career. And he's got now 230 homer seasons, and he's turned into a real stud, but not because of stealing. So it's player decision and team decision. We saw what Washington was doing for players last year as a ton of guys were stealing. I think they made all of Winker's steals. You're right about the injury in New York, but I think that goes with their team philosophy too, of not really running and putting the risk out there. I don't think they're going to let him run this year in New York. All right, last bit of news. I don't think it really moves the needle because they have Mason Miller, of course, but I'd be remiss not to mention that Jose Leclerc is signing with the Athletics. Is he the second in line guy for you, Justin? Like if you are in a DC and you are speccing in case like Miller blows up, would Leclerc be the guy you would take in like the 40-somethingth round? Or what do you think there with him going to Oakland or going to Athletics, excuse me? How dare I say that city?
This contract is so crazy. Like he got $10 million.
All of their contracts are crazy. Oh, except for the Rooker extension. That was deserved.
Right.
This is like the buddy that you have that like never pays, and everybody always complains that he never pays for like dinner or for drinks or whatever. And then he goes out one night and he drops like all this money just to show, hey, look, I'm this guy who always like, throwing around money. Like $10 million for Jose Leclerc to be your setup guy in Sacramento, just to me is insane. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure he is like next man up if Mason Miller injury issues pop up like they have prior to last season.
Right.
Then I think Jose Leclerc would be the dude. So in DC's, I would be taking a shot on him. In AL only, I would be taking a shot on him. But outside of that, like Mason Miller's a dude. As much as Mason Miller has had injury issues in the past, I think they found something with him in the bullpen to hopefully keep him healthy. And
Better question then. Yeah. Well, before you finish there, if you take Miller, are you backing up your Miller with Leclerc then because of the injury concerns for a guy who could be the number one closer? And in fact, if people took Miller number one, I wouldn't really balk. I know the Athletics aren't expected to win a ton of games or whatever, but like if you took him as the number one closer, I'd say, okay, that's not my number one, but I get it. Do you then take Leclerc because of the injury issues Miller's had all the way up?
In a DC, for sure, I'm doing that in a draft champions. Even in a 15-team mix, that's really hard to do because that's one less roster spot that you can be going after something else, right? Like a streaming starter or a person who might luck into a closer role or walk into a closer role, and you just don't want to hold on to those guys for super long in your traditional redraft leagues. So
Kopech or Leclerc?
Kopech.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Without hesitation. And Jason said yes as well. And I agree. And Leclerc's nowhere near his ADP, but I do think that with him signing, he'll move up. Maybe not all the way to pick 220 or 2 whatever.
No, he won't even be
Kopech's
top
going to
400. But
right.
Like,
but he is the next guy.
Even at the price difference, I would still take Kopech.
So would I. Jason, it seems like you co-signed that with regards to Leclerc and everything. So let's move over to a few closing comments on first base, because you got to listen to our previews there, and we talked about what's going on with the Rays, with Yandy being no power and Aranda still lurking, and you got some comments about those guys. Let's hear your thoughts on the Rays first base situation.
Yeah, just a couple of things. One, I'm still kind of surprised Yandy's still on the roster. I still expect him to be traded with things. But when you guys were talking about how he was hitting for power and then all of a sudden he wasn't. Remember, he was dealing with mid-back problems and he got hit on the forearm. So he was playing through injury a bit. And
Mm-hmm.
one of you guys made the reference about big unit, a lot of maintenance. That he is a tank, and
Yes.
tanks need maintenance, and that's when they need maintenance, they don't do well. And that's when Yandy's having some trouble with his leg, everything else kind of falls apart. And he's good for those. I mean, he's good for one or two of those stints a season, and that's what I remember happening. But I wanted to bring up the Aranda one in particular, because he had a really good September while nobody was looking. And he had a very terrible start to the season. You guys made mention about his AAA numbers coming down, but remember, he got drilled in the wrist and had a broken wrist right at the end of spring training. Otherwise, he was making the club. He had a phenomenal spring, got drilled, came back, and then had an oblique injury within a week of coming back from that. And so his season really didn't start until sometime in July. Then he was doing better in Durham. Then September, he was hitting the ball a lot different than what I remember him hitting the ball in his previous. I used to think, okay, we jokingly called him the Timu version of Luis Arias.
Yes.
So it's just like that. But Aranda was hitting for more, showing more loft, showing that he was hitting the ball with authority, not just up there being a punch and Judy type of situation. So I was impressed with what I saw from him in September and his ability to turn and burn on some more pitches. And I think, again, he was hitting one of the best guys out of camp, but he just got that unfortunate injury right there at the end. And I think that's brought his value down a lot. And there are some sneaky hidden upside in Aranda this year, because he's probably going to get all the playing time he wants against right-handed pitching.
And I mentioned
as a DH, but
I can't quit him. Yeah, he's a wretched defender, Aranda is, but I can't quit him, because if he does pop off this year, I'll feel bad having drafted him for the last couple of years, classic Sporer a year too early. So I am going to stick with him. And I think I said on the show, probably won't have him maybe as much as I did last year, because I was trying to bet on him, but it is also magical age 27 season. So,
oh yeah, guaranteed.
We know that guarantees quite a bit, but no, I do think Aranda does have a lot of intrigue and is somebody who could be a fast riser. If things start to look good in spring, because he's kind of a hipster fantasy person's type of guy, Aranda. I think if he does get some juice, you'll see a lot of Aranda chatter out there. Go get Jonathan Aranda. This dude can hit. So yeah, great insights there with the injuries that he dealt with. Only 44 games in the majors, still showed some flashes. And if that power's there, then watch out, because they could flip Yandy in season too, right?
Oh, they could. He's in the last year of his deal. I would also encourage, go back and look at 2013 James Loney. Go look at that stat line. 13 home runs, 75 RBIs, 299, 348 OBP, 430 slug. And he did that. He played almost every day. He missed 4 games on the season. But those are attainable numbers for Aranda, especially in the ballpark.
And the power that power doesn't jump out. But if he hits 299 for a full season, that is super valuable where Aranda's going to, because he's not an expensive pickup.
Correct.
So, all right. Well, appreciate your insights there. Very nice to have the holiday, so you guys could both join us here. We didn't go yesterday because of that, and I had to come on here and face the music of my team, so I wish you guys the best of luck the rest of the way. Jaden's a stud. I just hope he doesn't RG knee it up.
Don't even say it.
Because you guys deserve.
Every time he ran the football in the fourth quarter, I'm like, stop, put Mariota back in. Run more of those stupid
By the way,
snakes.
That play was so stupid. I really got happy when that play happened. I was like, why would you ever take the ball out of Jaden's hands? But hey,
man, that game,
good.
The fun thing, that game felt like a college football game. It reminded me, in 2017, UCF played Memphis for the American Conference, and it was 62-55 final, and it was just back and forth haymakers. And watching that first half, and I was like, this is what this feels like. This is every time you turn around, okay, I'm going to go get a drink. I'm going to go to the bathroom. Nope, I'm going to miss
You missed something. Yeah. Knockout punches left and right, big turnovers, big touchdowns. Amazing game overall, unless you're on the Lions side. But as a neutral observer, I'm sure people were enjoying the hell out of that. Again, best of luck next week. I won't be rooting for the Eagles too hard, because again, I'm just sad. I'm just sad. So if two of my best friends can get joy, then I don't have to root for the Eagles very hard. Go commies. Fine, I said it. Now I'm on tape saying go commies. Joseph McCarthy going to come get me. Guys, have a good one. Justin will be back later this week, starting up another position preview, probably second base. I think we're doing the traditional catcher first, second. So we'll start up second base later this week. Talk to y'all later.
See ya.
Take it easy.